Greetings, friends and future friends. Today's video is on the Korg Pa5x. Now, this is going to be a tutorial video on the Chord Sequencer. Now, the Chord Sequencer in the Korg Pa5x, I always thought made it stand out from all the other arranger keyboards. The way you can write a song and write a chord sequence and save it and do all the cool things with it is right there in the keyboard itself. And then you can bring up a style and all that stuff, and it's really cool. Now with the firmware 1.3 upgrade, they added some new functions in the Chord Sequencer, and I want to show them to you because it really makes songwriting a lot easier and quicker. So let me show you how that works. Okay, we got the Korg Pa5x all fired up. We've got Cool Blues version 1 loaded in player 1, and if we play a chord, and if we play a chord on the keyboard, the style will follow, and that's just what an arranger keyboard does. Okay, let's check out the Chord Sequencer. We'll come down here and hit Chords, and it brings us to the Chord Sequencer screen. Now you can see that I actually have a title in here, Cool Blues 01, which means I actually have a chord sequence already recorded and saved to that style. But if we wanted to create a new chord sequence, we could hit record. And remember, when you hit the record, it will erase what's ever in here. Now, it won't erase the chord sequencer that's in the library. Now, there's the factory, and then there's the user. Now, these are all the chord sequences that I saved. Exit out of that. It won't erase the chord sequence in the library, but it'll erase it from being in the style. So we hit record, we got the record light flashing, and we play E minor. And there you go. You now just recorded a chord sequence. Now you could hit the record, and remember, if you hit the record, it's going to erase this sequence and you're going to start a new sequence. Come up here, the corner, and hit Save Chord Sequence. Come over here, title it, create whatever title you want. I'm not going to save it because we're just using this as an example, but if you wanted to save that chord sequence, boom, there you go. And it's the same way. This part of the chord sequencer is the exact same as it was in all the other versions. Okay, let me show you some of the new functions that they brought into the chord sequencer in the new firmware 1.3 upgrade. So if we expand out, we see we have the chord sequence, and if we play it, it's just a chord sequence. And of course, you know, you could bring chord sequences in and all that. But the new thing is right here. There's a square with a button. And when you push on that, it brings up this menu. Now, this menu right here, if you're familiar with music and how it works, is really cool stuff. There's a lot of software out there that does this. And now you can do this right in the chord sequencer with the Korg Pa5x. If you look, you'll see add chord, delete chord, insert measure, cut measure, quantize, and delete all. All functions that will work with this chord sequence. So now, before we get into really editing the sequence and doing a lot of cool things, let's just look at the basic sequence. First, you have E minor and a B minor. And if you come down here and you tap on the B, you can change that now to an A, and you can see that's now an A minor. Or we can change it to a G minor. Let's go back to the B. And also, what's really cool is you can change this from a minor to a suspended 13th, all kinds. You can go back to a major, add 9, all the different chord progressions that you can think of in the Korg Pa5x are right there. You could bring that and change that to a B9 or whatever you wanted to do. So you can change the chords in this progression. Now, one thing you need to look at, and I think after playing with this chord sequencer and this menu, the big thing to look at is right here. This is your chord sequence length. Now, whatever that length is, if we go over here and you can see, if we play that again, you can see down here, it says 9th measure, 1st beat, end of track. So basically we have 8 measures, and at the end of the 8th measure, it's going to go to the 9th measure, 1st beat, and it's going to repeat and bring it right back. So this is always going to be the end of track. So if we wanted to say we want to make this into a 12-bar blues kind of thing, all we'd have to do is tap on this. You can bring it up, but if you want to, the best way I like to do is bring it here and go 1, 2, go OK. And if we hit it again, now you can see the end of track is now 13th. So in other words, the 13th measure, 1st beat, 0 ticks, is going to be the start over. And now if we got out of this, you can see now that we just increased that sequence by 12 measures. That is one of the coolest things, because if you want to add something or do something, you can just go into there and change the length right as you go. Now, being we've changed the length, we have a couple things we can do. We could come over here and we'll say, okay, because we're going to go 7, let's go over here. And then let's insert a chord or add a chord. Now, what just happened is you're going to see it just copied this down. So when it copied it down, we can come over here and we're going to say, we'll make that a A. Let's make that A. And we'll make that a minor also. But see, now it's on the 7th measure. So what we want to do is say, okay, we want that's going 4, we went 4, 5, 6, 7. So let's go make this 9. Tap on that, bring it up, go back, go 9, measure. Let's bring the ticks down, bring that time in better, make that 0, okay. Now, what's going to happen is on the 9th measure, 1st beat, if we go out of this, now you're going to see 9th measure, 1st beat, there's the A minor. This is really cool stuff. It just takes a little while to get used to it, but when you come in here and start adding chords and subtracting chords, you can actually change the sequence altogether. So now, say we did this, but we want to go back to the 8 measures. So we'll go over here, click on that, we'll go to 8, go OK. Now it's going to warn you, say, hey, anything past the 9th measure is going to be deleted. Are you sure? Because remember, we had just created a 12-bar blue thing. Now we're going to go back to 8-bar. Say yes. Boom. Let's look at our chord sequence, and boom, now it's back to 8 measures again. So one of the cool things in working with this that's very important is to keep track of this number right here, the chord sequence length, because that's going to help you in lengthening a song or taking away a song. Now, if you're just going to add a measure or two, you can always go in here, insert measure. So if we go over here to the end of the song and we want to add a, cancel out of that. If we want to go here at the end of the song and we want to add a measure, we can always go insert measure. And you can just see the chord sequence length went to 9. And if we add another measure, it just went to 10. And we do this. And now you can see the end of track is now 11, the 11th measure, 1st beat. This is really great stuff because you can change things, you can rewrite your sequence and create a sequence now to your song. And then just like anything else, we go back out of this, we can come up here and we could actually save that sequence. So what does that mean? Exit out of this. That means with this new tool, you can edit, add, subtract measures, add chords, do all kinds of things, and then save that chord sequence and bring it up when you want it. Another really cool feature in this new setup that they have here in the chord sequencer is the quantizing. So you have an idea in your head, you want to play a chord, you wrote it down. You can see I'm not perfectly on the beat. So what can we do? We can go over here and hit quantize, and it's going to say quarter note. Let's go to 16th, let's go to 8th notes, execute, boom. Now look, all these ticks are at 0, so now that sequence is right on the money. So another cool feature in these menus is quantizing. You can actually quantize you go in there, record your track like I said, and it's not perfect. Bring it into this area here, hit the tool, hit quantize, and now all those notes are right on the money. Okay, another function you have here in this screen is to delete all. And it's pretty self-explanatory. If we hit delete all, it deletes everything. So if we did that and we wanted to start again, and even if we didn't want to go back and record a new sequence, we could go over here and just for example, I'm going to hit this, make it 4, go okay. Now it's going to tell me, hey, 5 measures will be deleted, say yes. And then I'm going to come over here and say add chord. Now, if you notice, it's now saying end of track is 5.1 and the C here is now at 5.1. It just mirrored that. So we have to go over here. We're going to go measure 1. Okay. And then we're going to change this to E, and we're going to make that a minor again. And now if we play that, now we have starting on measure 1, E minor, and ending on measure 5, beat 1, it's going to go back and repeat. All right, so now you can see that this new version, the firmware upgrade 1.3, and the new chord sequencer is light years ahead of anything out there, I think, other than some of the software you can get for the computer. I mean, now you can create a chord sequence. Even if you record it incorrectly, you can bring it back. You can quantize it. You can make it right. You can insert chords. You can actually edit. The previous versions, you could not edit that chord sequence. You had to go back and re-record it. With this new version, you can now edit all the chord sequences. Really, really outstanding stuff here, because now you can write those songs and you don't have to worry about if you recorded it right the first time. You can change it right in the keyboard itself. Okay, I want to show you, I switched to a different style, but I wanted to show you that changing these chord types, like a suspended, a minor 6th, add 11th, a minor major 7th, plus 11th, all these chord sequences do change things. So it's just not, hey, it says it up here and all that, but it really changes. I'm going to play you this sequence, and what I did is I just played an E minor for 4 bars, and then I went in and changed these numbers. So a suspended, I think, what's the first one? So we got an E minor, if we go up here, we got an E minor, we got an E sus and all that. But listen to them when they play. So certain styles, you probably wouldn't hear this chord change, because if you just had bass and drums, you might just hear the E. But in some styles that have a lot of instruments playing and accompaniments, you're actually going to hear these chord changes, and they're going to change the texture of your style or your song. Now, there's only one bad thing so far that I've found in this chord sequencer, and it's something I want to bring to your attention. I don't know, maybe in the next version of firmware they'll address this. But if you have no chord sequence playing at all, and you go up here and you write, say, hey, I'm going to write a chord sequence. I'm going to make it 2 measures, and then I'm going to add a chord. We'll make that C. We're going to start that at beat 1 and go okay. And now you can see that chord sequence is up there. But when I play it, it will not repeat. I've tried all kinds of different things, even if I delete it and bring it back. If I delete it, well, hit cancel. If I delete it and then say add chord again, bring it back, measure 1, okay, I play it. If you go in and write a chord sequence all by itself without having an original chord sequence, it doesn't seem like it wants to repeat. So what that means is that you have to go in and actually record a sequence. Or if you do this, if you come back and say, okay, let's go back to here, hit record, we erase that chord sequence, and we bring up test 103, just some chord sequence I have, exit, you bring that up. Now if you bring that in there, now it'll actually, and then let's go back in here, and that's 24. Let's make that, no, let's make that 4, okay, yes. And if we bring that up, you now see that it loops. So the takeaway from this, the only flaw I see in this new chord sequencer is you cannot write a chord sequence from scratch. So when you're in the split mode, if you have this erased and you go in to this to write a chord sequence, it will not repeat. I don't know why it won't, but it just won't. But if you go back, or if you even go up here and you bring in a chord sequence, exit out, bring up a chord sequence, then go in here and record. And then, like I said, it's 24. We're going to make that 2. Go, okay, yeah, we're going to lose a lot. Boom. And now it'll repeat. Again, the only flaw in this new chord sequencer is you cannot write a chord sequence from scratch. You either got to record a chord sequence or bring in a chord sequence that you have previously recorded to start with. What I'm going to probably do now is create a 2-bar chord sequence that I can bring in real quick and call it my start. But other than that, this thing is amazing. So there you have it, the chord sequencer and some of the new functions that they brought into it with the new firmware update. Really cool stuff. Makes writing songs so much faster and easier. How you can save your chord sequence to the library and bring it up against any style you want to play. Also, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please subscribe. You'll help us grow the channel. That way we can bring you more cool stuff. So take care, my friends, and thanks for watching.